if you can see the shared screen on your side.
Yes, I can find and connect with your ag customers. Yes, I can see the shared screen. So
feel free to welcome in our participants, and we can kick off there. And welcome to everyone who's online.
Great. Yes, well, okay, so I can begin. So and let me begin by welcoming everybody to this masterclass in relation to U.S. agriculture, and it's really with great pleasure that I do welcome everybody. And of course, I particularly want to acknowledge the contribution that we will have from Rooster and their kind of ideas, their views, I think will be listened to, I think, with great care by Enterprise Ireland client companies because of the insight I think that we will receive. So I do want to welcome both Chris and Karen and James to this particular masterclass, and very much to acknowledge as well the work of Rory Brannock and indeed Sarah Hill and our other colleagues in the Americas market, and of course my own colleagues back here in Ireland. The whole, when you look at agriculture and look at the agricultural technology industry, Ireland is a particularly important, I suppose, base to find such industry, because we have a rich tradition in farming and in the, I suppose, generation of the materials that go into food production. And the fact that so many companies that have emerged out of Ireland, very successful companies across several different subsectors, selling ultimately into farmers and farming, companies that are in the farm equipment sectors, the livestock handling and housing, crop cultivation and protection, animal health and nutrition, and really important as we look into the future, really emerging cohort of smart companies that offer smart farming solutions. And I think that these are part of a future, a kind of a very rich future for Irish agriculture, agri-tech, for the agri-tech sector. It's probably fair to say that the capability that exists that actually underpin these companies is something that should not be underestimated. Coming from this kind of country, we'll say, with this rich farming tradition, that becomes, if you like, the base to launch so many of these companies. But that's an important starting point. But when you couple that with the capabilities that I suppose are finally honed in the various kind of schools and universities around the country in producing people of world-class caliber, world-class kind of education in areas from mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, electronics, right through into software engineering, and of course all of the other necessary disciplines that are required to actually develop a world-class agri-tech sector. We have all of this kind of happening in Ireland right now. We have an extensive set of companies, more backed up by a very strong capability in centres of expertise, technology centres and centres of world-class science, all supporting this sector. So Ireland is a place to find these good companies, but good companies, great companies that we want to develop, companies of real scale. What's really important is that they succeed both in terms of their innovation, and they're doing that. The support, the development of their capabilities and their capacity is all part of the story. But the investments that they're making into the future, hugely important, both in facilities and in their people and in their systems. And crucially, and particularly important for Ireland, the international perspective that they take. The fact that, if Ireland succeeds, it will succeed by having companies that can perform and deliver in global marketplaces. And the Americas is a particularly important marketplace for Irish ag tech. And that's why this particular masterclass, I think, is so important for our client companies to participate in. And it is really wonderful to see so many companies that are responding to your call, Rory, to attend. So I really want to welcome welcome all of them on behalf of Enterprise Ireland. And I probably could go on at length now for the rest of the afternoon, but that isn't I'm not the person that you really want to hear speaking. I think I can hand it back and listen to the actual contributions from the Rooster colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom. I'm going to get us going here and talk a little bit about Rooster. Thank you so much for having us be a part of this webinar. My name is Karen Pfautsch, and I lead growth at Rooster. I actually was born and raised on a corn and soybean farm in the Midwest of the United States. My family still farms. My brother sells seed corn as well as growing corn and soybeans. And my career has been focused in agriculture. I've worked at 2 agencies, Rooster and one other, and both of these agencies have been focused entirely on helping ag businesses reach their goals, reach their audiences. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about Rooster. My boss, Josh Turney, he founded Rooster back in 2017. And prior to founding Rooster, he had worked in agricultural media sales for about 20 years. His latest role was at Farm Journal, and he was meeting with ag businesses and agencies and offering them solutions via print or digital or live events to reach farmers and other audiences. And what Josh found as he is meeting with these agencies, he just kept interacting with younger and younger folks, maybe a year or 2 out of college, that were making huge decisions for those client budgets. They were making the recommendations of the best ways to reach farmers. And he realized in those moments that there are businesses out there that would value experience. And so he started Rooster. He found some of the colleagues that he had worked with in the past. He knew their experience level. He knew some of the lessons that they've learned that they can bring to the table for clients, and put together Rooster as a consultancy. So we started out helping businesses solve their sales and marketing challenges from a consulting point of view. And then we had a client that said, instead of just helping us, telling us what to do, could you actually put a team together and help us do it? So back in 2020, we started building out a full service agency here at Rooster. We have a full media team, a digital team, a content team, a PR team. We have video work. We work with agricultural influencers, and we continue to work with a group of clients that are focused in ag and the rural marketplace. I'm going to show you a few of the clients that we work with. You'll see seed companies and equipment companies and commodity associations and both livestock and crops. We work with a lot of folks on sustainability programs. We work in the financial sector. We also work with companies like Morton Buildings and WorkSaver that are trying to reach rural landowners. And we live agriculture. Many of us come from the farm. The majority of the team has worked on agriculture throughout their career. We have some other folks that bring a different special spice to our mix. And we are just so excited to help farmers because it's what we believe in. And I'm excited to introduce you to my colleagues, Chris and James. They will be talking about what you really want to hear in this presentation. So Chris, if you want to go and introduce yourselves, and we'll get into it.
Thanks, Karen. My name is Chris Brulatour, and my particular specialty is brand strategy and planning. And so you're going to hear from me today, give that perspective into what Tom teed up as sort of the metrics for your success. Let's see, by way of a little personal background, Tom, you mentioned universities, and what struck me is the university I went to, our nickname was the Fighting Irish. So I already feel a kinship to the audience today. So go Irish. And with that, before I start getting into our content, I'm going to ask James to quickly introduce himself so you get an understanding of the balance that we're going to provide today in our agenda.
Yes, and I won't take too long because I want to get on with Chris, but my name's James Arnold, and I do work with Karen and Chris at Rooster. And my career path has been in digital for the most part since about 2000. focused solely on the rural marketplace and agriculture. All aspects, livestock, equipment, corn and soybeans, produce, all aspects of U.S. domestic, how to reach these farmers, how to help brands communicate in the right place, the right time. And it's all been focused on digital, which, as you can imagine, in 2000 was quite a bit different than it is today. There was no social media. Texting was just coming on board. It's like, how do you stay up to speed, not only on the digital technologies, but farmers' usage of it and their willingness to engage with it. So that's what I've basically devoted my career to since, well, past 24 years. And hopefully I can bring something to you to help. So with that, let's get on with it, Chris.
Yeah, great. Thanks, James. You noticed in our title slide, well, you certainly noticed it in the invitation, that the masterclass is called Find and Connect. And that's certainly true, that you need to find customers and then you want to connect deeply with them to create loyalty around your brand and your business. But you'll notice here in the agenda that we flipped the order because we have a philosophy here that in order to stand out, you've got to stand for something that is important so that you can scale. So I'm going to take the connect part and James is going to take the find part. And specifically, I want to talk about building what we call brand strength. And I'll get into that in a second. But before I do, I kind of want to level set by way of the red thread that connects both the connect and the find. And that's a word that's incredibly popular today in agriculture. It's precision. Oftentimes that relates to technology, right? But we don't believe that precision agriculture is limited to, and Karen, if you could just flip the slide so that we stay up, it's just about kind of using cutting edge tech to increase the return on investment or the ROI in farm management practices. In fact, we believe precision in agriculture is also about increasing the ROI, or as we call it in our business, the relevance, originality, and impact of your marketing messages and media. So we're going to drop a couple of names here, kind of lean into, okay, so what do you mean by marketing precision? How do you get there? How do you apply it from a strategy and planning standpoint anyway? There are three people that come to mind, the three big names. One is Aristotle, who said, through discipline comes freedom. And I think what he was trying to say is hope ain't a plan, right? But if hope isn't a plan, how do you plan? Well, we often, another saying that I think Picasso would appreciate when he says art is the elimination of the unnecessary. Well, the art of positioning your products is sacrifice. It's getting down to the need to know, the whole point of the matter. And last but not least, how do you, when you eliminate the unnecessary, where's the necessary? Well, at the end of the day, keep one thing in mind, is everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simple, according to Albert Einstein. And that comes down to sort of like, it's got to be understandable. It's got to connect with people, not only between the eyes, but in their gut, because that's how people make decisions, right? So if you take 2 steps back, or a lot of steps back, and you think about relevance, originality, impact, it used to be a lot easier. 2 of our clients that Karen mentioned, John Deere and Pioneer, they became household names, yes, largely because they were incredibly smart businesses, but also because what they stood for was easy to understand at a time when their identities that they created easily stood out. Things are a lot less complicated, right? Well, fast forward today, and I think the operative word is complexity. I pulled this off the internet. This was a graphic that a company put up about, technology companies that are changing the farm. I can't even count how many logos are on here. But one thing I know for sure is that the industry that we operate in today is incredibly fragmented in the United States. And what that's led to, unfortunately, is a lot of unfocused marketing, a lot of lack of precision, a lot of spray and pray type of hopes and without plans. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you create discipline, focus, and simplicity? We're going to do that by talking about brand strength. Okay. Now, to put brand strength into perspective, I want to familiarize y'all with a research tool that was created decades ago by a large multinational marketing agency that works with Fortune 500 companies. And they did research to evaluate and unpack and diagram, what makes leading brands so valuable. And so real quick, there's two levers. There's brand strength, and then there's brand status. Well, oftentimes we have clients that come to us and they're eager to create strong brand status. What do I mean by that? Well, esteem and knowledge. What do I mean by that? Awareness. We want to create awareness. We want to get out in front of people. The more people know us, the more people that'll beat a path to our better mousetrap. Well, stepping back and thinking about the better mousetrap, we've got to think about, again, going back to ROI, how your difference and your relevance, right? So that's the thing to keep in mind, is that you've got to have a balanced attack between creating awareness and, first of all, starting with relevance and differentiation. You'll notice another thing about this graph. Well, a couple of things. First of all, new brands start in the lower left. Dying brands are over in the lower right. They create a lot of awareness, but they don't stand for anything. And you could call it the graveyard, or the basically sort of eroding brands, right? You'll notice the other thing is that the wheel in the middle. What operates here is to grow a brand to grow a brand strong. You've got to go clockwise. You've got to build your brand strength at least as much as you're building your awareness. Okay. So just as a level set, that's what we believe. That's what I'm passionate about, is helping clients build their differentiation and their relevance. How do you do that? I want to touch on three things relatively quickly, and then I'm going to hand it over to James. But one is, you've got to take an outside-in view to what you're offering. Okay. There's 5 C's on this slide. This is the basis of our situation analysis discipline. One of them is the company capabilities. The other 4, are external. Okay, so you've got to bring your situation into focus to identify what we call your brand driver. I'll get into that in a second. But we've got company, customer, competitors, category, and climate. You've got to hit all 3 of these disciplines in order to identify where's your white space. Where's your advantage? Who are you going to hurt? How are you going to hurt them? And I talk about your competitors. Okay. Now you say, that's fine and good, Chris, but give us like what that brand driver looks like. Well, here's a great example. You've got 2 credit cards, 2 financial companies that basically do the same thing, but they stand for something significantly different. Amex, as you know, is all about status. Memberships have its privileges. Well, how does Visa basically unposition them and position themselves to advantage? Well, they came into the market with a campaign that was all about universal acceptance, right? Everywhere you want to be. And that's what gave them their brand driver. Okay. Real quick, what are the advantages of having a brand driver? Getting it down as simple as something like status and universal acceptance. Well, I'm sorry, we skipped the slide here, but I just wanted to say that it gives you, what we like to say at Rooster is a weather vane setting. Sort of it keeps you clearly on your path. Now, here's an example of what we did with one of our clients, FarmOp Capital. FarmOp Capital is in the business of funding operating capital. That's where the op comes from, FarmOp Capital, operating capital. But after doing many interviews and research and workshops with the client, we realized that this company was built on the idea that there's a difference between farms and farming, farm ownership and farming. And their target audience was the up-and-coming farmer, the young farmer that doesn't have a lot of fixed assets to put up as collateral for their operating capital. They're in the business of lending money based on productivity, AKA opportunity. Where is the company going? So you see some of the expression of their brands lower on this slide, and that's, transitions happen here. New farmers, next generation, a new day in ag lending, right? Working capital based on productivity. And that's the idea. FarmOp Capital equals opportunity, and it was take off with a solid compass set. Oh, there goes the benefits of the band driver. I was out of my own order. I apologize, but it'll pinpoint your meaningful difference, right? Provides clear direction to your marketing department and your marketing agencies. Ensures that all your employees are on the same page and bring the brand to life, represent the brands. Gives your sales team the basis of their talk track. Points the way to new business strategies and product. And speaking of your business, it protects your long-term vision. Here's another tool that some of you may be familiar with, especially startups that have been through incubators and accelerators, but it's the lean canvas. And what we love about the lean canvas is it takes that situation analysis and it plots it in a way that connects the dots around the unique value proposition. The unique value proposition is everything. And by the way, quick commercial for Enterprise Ireland. They have a great webinar on the value proposition. I highly recommend you listen to that. But what this diagram, what this matrix is really all about is putting the focus on customer segments. Who do you want to go after? Who are your early adopters? Precision, precision, precision. What is their problem? What alternatives are they currently using? Because you are going to have to replace that alternative. You are going to have to change behavior. So at the end of the day, what are you promising them that's going to get in their mind, in their hearts, and in their wallets? So I highly recommend using this tool. It's widely available on the internet. It is fundamentally a business canvas. It can be easily adopted to a marketing strategy canvas. Okay, so situation analysis, lean canvas for connecting those dots. And last but not least, well, real quick, sorry about that, here's another client of ours. I'll really a quick little case. If you think about that chart I just gave you about the value proposition, there was also another box called the unfair advantage. And it's sort of like what's proprietary to you. What's your secret sauce? Well, AgriGraph came to us and said, oh, our secret sauce is we are the credit score of agriculture. And they thought that was pretty nifty, and it is, because it's sort of like, it's analogous to the idea of a credit score in consumer markets. It gives you one number that you can count on to evaluate the worthiness of a client, right? The problem is it was out of context. It was sort of like, well, the analogy, I'm not sure I get it. Well, after working with them through the lean canvas, we realized that their value proposition, what they stood for, their core essence, is they fund sustainability by providing risk solutions for sustainable finance. So they identified their target audience, which is sustainable finance constituents, and that they basically are funding the sustainability of that finance through solutions. Might sound like a subtlety, but it meant everything. What I was eager to get to is the last piece of the puzzle. If your situation analysis and your lean canvas exercise is sort of the intellectual sort of left side of the brain, very rigorous and very linear, don't sleep on your brand persona. Don't sleep on personality. In today's fragmented market, your personality can make a huge difference. And what you see on this slide is a tool we like to use. It's an archetype model. And quickly going around, you see there are 12 different archetypes. And every brand can align themselves with an archetype, a character that is going to be part of their journey. Okay, I'm not going to go into this in detail, but I do want to get to an example of this real quickly by way of one of the commodity associations we work with, and that's Indiana Soybean Alliance and their partners on the Indiana Corn Marketing Council. Karen and I did a workshop with them to diagram what they stood for. And it was very clear that their current persona was very much an everyman, sort of like the age-old, honest-to-goodness farmer. The problem was that they wanted to make a much bigger impact and create greater value among their constituents who are giving them checkoff dollars and I'm wondering, like, what's my return on investment? Why are we doing this? I know what we do, I know how we do it, but why are we doing this? And out of that workshop came the desire for them to be more heroic, to lean into a hero brand archetype. And out of that, our creative team developed a brand manifesto. I'm going to read to you really quickly so you get the sense of the difference between being an aw shucks everyman, we're just fitting in, growing corn and soybean, to what's our real purpose in life. We are Indiana farmers, first timers, part timers, old timers, and multi-generational family operations. Fiercely independent, united by a shared calling. We are yield pushers and opportunity producers, rooted in sustainability, ingrained in consumer demand. We seed food, energy, and economic growth. We are farmers, and we raise more than corn and soybeans. We raise families, communities, and standards of living. We are farmers. The future is ours to grow. And I hope you get a sense of, wow, that's pretty meaningful. It's pretty heroic. These are people that are challenging the status quo and going to change the world. So there you have it. There are 3 tools that I hope illustrate the importance of precision, and through precision, the idea of rigor, focus, and getting down to sort of the brass tacks of how can you make your customers really understand what you stand for in their guts. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to James, who's going to sort of go over to the other side of the brain and talk about, okay, if you've kind of got your pre-shot swing, as we say in golf, set, how do we then take dead aim on our customers? James?
Yeah. In some ways, it's 2 sides of the same coin, because we're talking about simplicity. So thanks, Chris, for setting that up. We want to set you up once you have that simple message, that brand message. We want to set you up so that you're getting it into the right place with the right impact. It sounds rudimentary. A lot of this sounds rudimentary, but don't miss the pieces. We see a lot of our friends in agriculture missing a lot of these things, and not hitting with their marketing budgets the right people, or at the right time, or at the right mentality. So that's kind of what we're going to go over. A lot of people jump from idea to product to selling it, but marketing has some key steps that we don't want you to miss. So we'll get into that. And primarily, we're going to focus on digital, because that's what my background is, digital marketing, digital sales. But this translates very well outside of that capacity as well. So we start by identifying marketing goal that matters the most. Simplicity, right? You want to sell things. You want to get to a place where you're accomplishing a real business goal. And what we want you to do is determine what you or your executives or your sales value the most. Talk to them, interview them, understand how they look at it. I'm in digital, so click-through rates and open rates on emails and how many people landed on our website. Those are really interesting, but that's not the business value that we're after. What was accomplished by the marketing that we are doing? Wow. Did they contact a dealer? Did they reach out to you? Did they buy something? We want to translate that value as much as we can to an actual action, so we can measure that and optimize against it. So we center our priorities on those actions to accomplish that single goal. And then throughout the process, we're optimizing that to make sure that that goal is being reached, but also narrating it internally because generally, if you're not the CEO, you're going to have to communicate to your chief executive officer how the money is being spent, how is it effective. And so you want to hone that in, focus it on that business shared value. And why do I even bring this up? That's because all the marketers in domestic US right now, this is their top priority, finding the value and communicating the analytic so that they can narrate and optimize their campaigns. Nobody wants to spend more money in marketing than they really want to. They want to be very efficient with it. So right now, analytics is the #1 thing marketers have on their minds. And so we need to take it seriously. And so I live as a digital guy on the left. I love all kinds of dashboards and numbers and charts. But you know who doesn't? Everyone else. So focus on the one value that people in your company or you care about the most from a marketing and business standpoint, and communicate that. No longer spreadsheets. Focus on the one simplicity. Focus on the one thing that people want to hear about. Did you accomplish with that marketing money what you set out to accomplish? We have that set up. Now I'm going to get into some nitty-gritty on how to work within the rural marketplace, or farming or agriculture in the US. You want to find the right audience, and it's not always easy. For one, the government data, US government data, tries to help you find the exact right types of farmers that you want to reach, and you can use your marketing dollars and find almost 1.4 million businesses involved in farming, and then dig down deep into each one of those. That's sort of handy, sort of helpful, It's the underpinning on all the data that flows throughout agricultural marketing in the U.S. But you don't want 1.4 million people. You want the right people. And usually that's, maybe it's acre size of their farm, maybe it's geography where they're located. But here's the challenge. Just because they have the same size of farm and they're located in the same place, they may have completely different mindsets. Tom and John here are both large acre farmers, but they come at their business with a different mindset. And so that's important too. Depending on your product, you want to make sure that, is it a laggard? Is it somebody that's not going to adopt the technology that you're bringing? Or is it a young up and comer who wants to, see all the ways that they can be efficient and take advantage of the technology? Those things are important. So it's not just about location and size. And why do I tell you this? As I focus on digital, there are ways to find the people that you want to sell to. On the surface level, it's the platforms. And I've worked with a number of European digital agencies, and they love those platforms. They love the Google and Meta because they can do all the things that they want to do. The problem with that, it's not a deep problem, but if you have all the budget in the world for marketing, stay there. It's easy. You can get it done, no problem. The problem is most people don't have all the money in the world for marketing. So you need to get a little bit deeper on your targeting and your data. So at the surface level, you have the platforms, snorkel level of finding farmers in the United States. You can geolocate with radio and maybe some out-of-home billboards. But at the scuba level, when you want to find the exact right farmers that you're trying to reach for your product specifically, there are entities that have first-party data. They know the farmers, they know what they're farming, they know their field sizes, they know when they're renting, they know what they're owning, they know sometimes what their predilection is on corn seed or tractor brand. They know a lot more than at the surface level, Google and Facebook might point you to people playing farm simulator. Or they not necessarily the farmer that you want, and you're spending money on that. So I'm telling you that the platforms can get you only so far, but there's much deeper, robust data to be had when marketing into the U.S. And then, not to make it even more difficult, but even the data providers in the U.S. As it relates to farmers aren't all the same. So this was one example when we were trying to help an association understand how many soybean growers are there in the state of Illinois. You think that would be a pretty simple question, right? But it's not. These people, they spend their lives trying to get all the data and all the information, and even they can't agree. Anywhere from 28,000 to 71,000 soybean growers in the state of Illinois. Well, we kind of know, as Rooster, we kind of know which ones are the strongest and which ones might be the weakest. So we're able to weight them on the far right to sort of get to and ascertain what is the closest number that we can get to on the number of soybean growers in Illinois. So you can say, you want first-party data, but you also want quality. Now there's also a few things within the agricultural space in U.S. that I just want to point out. They might be obvious, but these are four things that I've gleaned over 24 years of experience. One, buyers in the U.S. have a varied and plentiful influence on their purchase. It's not one guy making the decision. They're reaching out to the retailer, their agronomists, their nutritionists, their farm wife. It depends on what it is. It could be any number of other people that you want to make sure that they're informed as well on the decision. Consumer media assumptions don't hold, like digital out of home. So if you want to be in digital billboards throughout the country, we're talking about the rural marketplace that doesn't offer as much of that opportunity as, say, within the city. So there are specific media executions that don't make as much sense in the rural marketplace as others. You can't rely only on the platforms. Let's say your product is really great for a 1,000+ corn acre grower in Wisconsin. Google and Facebook have no idea how many acres these people grow. They may know how many acres they grow in Farm Simulator. They certainly don't know how many are farming 1,000 acres or own 1,000 acres or renting 1,000 acres. That's why the first party data providers are so substantially important. And then bandwidth is still a problem. And mobile, oftentimes, I don't know what the percentage is, but oftentimes the greatest internet speed that you're dealing with the farming community in the US is their mobile phone, because it's so expensive, so crazy expensive to offer speedy internet in the rural marketplace in the US. And then, since I have your attention, don't try to do it all. It's you want to, you have a brand, you have a product, you have a company that you're really excited about. So you want to go crazy, but it's a little bit of a map on how you should do things, at least digitally. You start with your own stuff, your websites, your own emails, the own customer journey. Make sure that when you start spending money in reaching this audience, that they have someplace to go. We have a client that I think it was a couple of months ago. They included the French territory in Canada. For some reason, it's blanking on me at the moment, but in their marketing, and they had no French landing page. Things like that. You can, Facebook and Google and lots of media partners will absolutely allow you to spend the money, even if the experience is terrible. And that's you're wasting that money. So start with your own audience action. What are they doing? What are they doing when they come to your website? Does it take them 6-7 pages to finally get to that value, that business action that you want them to take? If that's the case, shore that up before you go into marketing. Second, turn on the traffic. Organic social media is a beautiful place to start there. Paid search through Google is also a wonderful thing. Yes, Quebec, I know, I feel dumb. Thank you for that. After you turn on the traffic, then select the relevant media against the desired audience action. So if you're going for branding, use these tactics. If you're going for lead generation, use these tactics. If you just want traffic, you want people to experience what you're bringing, use those pieces, those tactics that you can bring to the table. Not everything works for everything. Basically don't use display banners if you are going for lead generation. I mean, it's a great marketing tool. Then finally, confirm success through analytics. Study everything that people are doing and make the changes throughout. On the right is a chart that just recently was released that shows you have a 500% higher rate in your media if you use multiple channels. So don't send an email and think you've won the day. You need to have multiple, especially in US. I'm sure this is global now. There are so many channels out there that people have adopted as their primary channel. Is TikTok how you reach these folks? Well, not universally. Is Facebook how you is Google? There are so many channels. You really can't rely on a single channel anymore. It's no longer cable TV ruined it for everybody. Okay, next. So I think I just continue the conversation. That's right. Continue the conversation about measuring and learning. All of digital. What I love about digital is it continually gives you more details and data. So this is just a quick example. Glance on the digital front on click-through rate and view completions, the cost per and viewability. Glance at those. Don't major in that. Glance at those, but study. Reach to universe. There are media, certainly the platforms. There's media out there that will sell you reach. A large reach into U.S. agricultural pockets of people that are more than there are people. This happens in our industry. I'll give you 100,000 reach when there's only 5,000 that I need to reach. So that's something you need to study. Frequency. How many times is my message going to be in front of these folks? Is it 100 in a month? If that's the case, you're probably running into negative brand lift. Is it only 2? Well, then your budget needs to change, or your audience focus needs to change. And then media benchmarks. A lot of media share with you what the averages should be. And what people don't do is study that. What if their averages are terrible? Then don't buy them. But we at Rooster marry the digital media with the website metrics. What is actually happening on the website? Because you can buy all the emails and social media that you want, but if that audience isn't acting and doing something on your website, that value that we talked about up front, then it was a waste of money. I had a client spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on Facebook video marketing, only to have that audience get to their website and bounce after 3 seconds, 99% of the time. They wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars. Please don't do that. I beg of you. And then you can glance at events and engagement time, but what you want to study on your website is your conversions, the key events. Tie it to that marketing value, that marketing business value goal, and then filter it by what mechanism, what tactics are bringing you more of those. So buy more of those tactics, buy less of the ones that aren't achieving that goal for you. In summary, I said a lot of things, but ultimately this is what I was trying to convey. The goal matters. Force efforts to tell your success story early. So before you pay for anything, make sure that you have a story, a digital story, a landing page, a website, a path for your users. Determine who your most desired audience is, use the tactics that reach that audience. Consider the unique qualities about that audience that might point you to different messaging strategies or tactics. Consider or trust no one. Trust no one and test everything, because one campaign doing the same thing the next time might give you completely different metrics. Test everything. Don't miss steps in the process. Keep it simple, and then learn. The numbers keep feeding back to you. Learn from them. And I believe we can move on to what's next.
Yeah, so I guess before we close out, I want to give the audience probably an opportunity to ask some questions on a lot of that content, which was great, by the way, and thanks to the 3 of you for preparing that. But if there are any questions from the people online that want to kind of pose them to the team here, we might get them to pop them into the chat at the moment, or the Q&A box on Zoom. And I'm just opening it up here. And yeah, I guess I see one here just probably more focused on Chris's side of the content, but what would be an effective next step following the identification of a scaling company's brand driver when looking towards the US market? Like, where could a company build on this idea with appropriate budget and resources allocated?
Well, let's make sure I understand the question. And we have a saying, we like conversations better than presentations. So if I don't get it right, maybe the person who's asking it can set me straight. But I'll work backwards from the last thing you said about, how can you use that to help focus your marketing efforts. And I think it's intrinsic right there. It intrinsically focuses your marketing message when you have a sharp tip to your spear. Maybe what they're getting at too is, hey, Chris, you kind of quickly, kind of touched on what could feel very theoretical or academic. But when you get into the process of actually looking from the outside in and looking at the landscape, you will start to see where your leverage lies, where the white space is. And then if you use tools to take those dots and connect them, like through the lean canvas device, where you're really focusing on who do I really need to change their behavior from what they're doing today to our product. It illuminates sort of what are you going to promise them? What is the value proposition? And the important part of that is, how can I make that value proposition as simple as, gut simple? Hopefully I've answered the question. Rory, if you want to reframe it in a way that, since you're kind of looking at how they said it,
No, that sounds good.
I'd be happy to, ask Karen and James to also jump in.
No, that sounds great. And I just see another question come through just this moment, which might be fitting for all three of you to have an answer for. But what are the thoughts on the use of influencers in the agricultural space across the board?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, in the U.S. farming world, they've always run on influence. Everybody has influencers. They've always had influencers. It's whether it's the neighbor, the agronomist, the local retailer, they've always been influenced by people they respect. So the idea of social media influencers, or creators as they like to be called now, is a perfect fit. It's a perfect fit with our farming audience. They are more likely to follow and engage and respond based on some of their respected influencers than they are most of the respected publications or journalists in the United States. Influencers have a great position within agriculture in U.S. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just would like to add to that, sort of the full circle. They're also an incredibly great research surrogate, a feedback mechanism. They represent for every influencer however many followers. So, we're doing a project right now with our one of our clients, and we are putting an incredibly big importance on listening to what our influencers are talking about, because what they're talking about is what their farmers care about.
Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. And I guess a follow-up question to that for a lot of the members or the attendees on the call, what's the best way to find those influencers? And I know obviously social media is probably the easy answer, but as you said, some of these might not even be that social media influencer. They might be the agronomist or the family member on the farm or whatnot, like the examples you gave. What's the best way for kind of our client companies to identify and find those and align them with their brand and their marketing campaign?
Well, as you're seeking them, what we found and that works the best is you start from who are your customers? Who are the people that you already are working on? And do any of them have a footprint enough to have a voice that people would call an influence? It doesn't work as well. I'm not saying it won't work, but it doesn't work as well when you're bringing in, a hired gun to start spouting the messages that you're giving to them as an influencer. And they don't like working that way either. It usually starts from somebody who is engaged with your product or your brand, and they are already ready to speak on your behalf. You just need to support them.
I'll dovetail on that again, because as James alluded to before there were social media influencers, there's always been influencers. And one of the things I kind of sniffed about that question, Rory, was, there's the social media side, but then there are influencers that we need to connect with, agronomists and retailers and things like that. Another tool that is a great free shot tool is journey mapping. To lay out, I diagram your customer's journey and the moments that matter. And along those moments that matter, to earmark, okay, who's an influencer? Who are they looking to at that point in time? And that will help start to structure a organic media plan, if you will, that, yes, includes then, okay, how do I buy media that reaches those people and things like that? But it also sort of gets a really full picture of how your customers get from awareness to interest, desire to action.
And changing it a little bit, I think in the last year in particular, we've had a lot of clients that knew that they needed to reach crop input retailers. It wasn't enough just to talk to the farmers about their product, that the products were going to be sold through the retailer, but they are very strong influences on the farm, the retailers. But it's not enough just to have your product be sold at the retailer. You need buy-in from the sales agronomists that work at that retail location, because they do have such strong influence on the farmer. So thinking about, your communications plan and your marketing budget, you need to set aside some dollars to really make sure that the on-the-ground touch points truly understand the value of your product and are willing to speak up for it.
And just another question that came as you were discussing there, in terms of the kind of maybe more traditional marketing tools and magazines in the US industry, what would be the main ones to look out for? And I guess to make this parallel with the Irish version of the Farmer's Journal, what is the Farmer's Journal in the US? And I know there is the Farm Journal, but is that the kind of pinnacle, or what are other examples that have great kind of footprint across the ag market?
Well, we did some proprietary research on this subject because, one, we want to confirm, because all the media will tell us that print is still king in the United States, and we agree, but we did some of our own research to confirm that. And in asking that, we wanted to know how much had changed over time with their engagement with that media. So by and large, the usage of magazines by farmers in the United States is solid. It's solid #1 usage from a media standpoint still. And I'm the digital guy, so I don't like saying it, but it's true. But the ones that stood out, Farm Journal, Successful Farming, Farm Progress, those stood out as a leading magazines within the U.S. Agricultural field. Am I missing anything? Because Farm Progress does break into some regional publications that are useful on a more regional, local level. But I think that's kind of what our research told us. Those were the top 3.
Lovely stuff. And yeah, like a lot of our clients on the call today would certainly look to maybe travel to the US market maybe once or twice, or depending on their scale, however many times a year, to attend some events. And sometimes a popular strategy for brand awareness might be that kind of sponsorship style of brand awareness at a particular event that might align with your end market. Have you had much experience with that kind of tool, I guess, in terms of brand awareness tool, or what would your kind of experience with that be?
Hey, before Karen jumps in, I want to, not to play bad cop, but I just want to kind of, a sobering comment, and maybe it'll tee Karen, which is, from a strategic standpoint, sponsorships can be very valuable, because you think about it, it's a shared sort of force multiplier, right? 1 + 1 = 3. Having said that, a sponsorship is only as good as how you activate it. So the money you put up front is wasted. It's good money if you don't activate it. So activation is what it's all about. So work backwards from how are you going to make that sponsorship come to life. And if I stepped on any of your lines, Karen, I apologize. But
no, I think you helped. I think you helped tee me up, because my philosophy is, for the clients that I've worked on in the past, if you're going to sponsor, I want you to have a chance to speak. Having your logo on a sign of a whole bunch of logos, I don't know that it provides the value, especially if you're introducing something new here in the United States. I would tend to shy away from sponsorships that just put you in a sea of logos. Thinking through how you can activate it. Also, all of these companies that offer sponsorships, they want money, but they often will allow flexible and creative ideas that you have. You bring it to them, tell them you'll pay them a sponsorship dollar amount for it, but it's more aligned with how you want to engage with the audience. They're often really receptive to that. So I would definitely consider creative use of sponsorship dollars.
And maybe one last question before we move on to kind of closing out this webinar. Of course, there's many clients on the call today, and there has been a lot of insight from both Chris and James on both the kind of brand and the connection side and finding your customers. And of course, to James's point, you can't do it all at once, which is definitely something to remember. But what will be, out of all the kind of content covered, what will be that kind of most important actionable next step for some of these clients to apply these concepts, or to maybe start these concepts to begin like a successful kind of brand awareness campaign or marketing campaign in the United States?
Well, from my corner of the world, I'd go back to, not to pat myself on the back, but I'd go back to tattoo ROI to your arm, relevance, originality, and what James was talking a lot about today about impact, right place, right time, right context. But relevance and originality start with the discipline of doing the hard work and eliminating the unnecessary. You can't say everything. You can't stand for everything. You can't be everything to everybody in today's marketplace. So I would go back to, retrace steps and ask yourself, have you done that hard, heavy, boring, strategic work to think about? Or, look in the mirror. Are you, operating from hope as opposed to plan?
Yeah, and I'm with Chris. I think digital marketing specifically is so easy with the platforms, Facebook and Google. Anybody can launch it for any type of business. And I think because of that, it makes us really lazy as marketers to not shore up the simple thing that who we are, what we stand for, but two, what we really want to accomplish with that marketing goal.
Yeah.
If we just did that rigor up front, it makes all the money that we're spending work that much harder for us.
Rory, there's an old saying about questions. The brands build businesses, or the businesses build brands. And what you heard today is both. And I think it's about a balanced attack. What James was talking about is that your brand efforts, your branding and your marketing efforts have to align with your business objectives, or else you're wasting money. What I talked about is brand asset. Think about your branding as an asset creative, not an expense, not as a transaction, but something that is somewhat more transformational.
Thank you. That's great. And look, I guess I know we're coming up to the half-hour mark, so I might move to kind of just saying a few words and thanking all the attendees today. And before closing it out, I would like to take the opportunity to thank you all for joining and your attention today. I initially connected with the team at Rooster on this idea of precision marketing and brand awareness in the US agricultural market. As it is a crucial piece of the scaling puzzle when moving to the US market that can sometimes be neglected when entering the market. So an absolute massive thanks to Chris, James, and Karen from Rooster Strategy, and Josh, I might mention, for delivering this extremely relevant and engaging content, covering those US considerations to make when developing this marketing and brand awareness strategy. And some of those insights were fantastic today, and I'm sure the client companies found it extremely valuable. As well as that, it was a pleasure to have our divisional manager, Tom Kelly, open today's event and give great insight into our agricultural portfolio, some of those fantastic innovations coming out of Ireland, and the capabilities we have on that portfolio. And a massive thanks to Tom for his contributions, kind of engagement and leadership when it comes to this portfolio and the development of them playing on that international field. And I guess to the attendees and the clients, if there are any clients out there, I know there was a few more questions in the chat there, but have any follow-up questions and are looking to get directly connected with Rooster to discuss some of these kind of foundations in more detail, please do get in touch with myself or the team. I know that their contact details are there, but we can assist with setting up a follow-up call over the coming weeks. And yes, the recording of this webinar will be posted on the Enterprise Ireland YouTube channel, and so that clients can rewatch and go back over some of these concepts in more detail. But an absolute massive thanks again for joining today, and have a great rest of your day and week. Gurmila Mahagat.
Well done, James.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Tom. Thanks to the team, Karen.
Well done, James. Excellent, Karen. Chris, that's most interesting.
Lovely stuff. I'll definitely catch you up all individually, and we'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Rory.
Slan that.
All the best.